Hello, my friends. Today we'll start with the fact that Russia has once again stated that it will not stop the war until Ukraine meets all of its demands. Russia will continue to resolve issues by force until Ukraine comes to its senses and agrees to realistic negotiation terms. Russia's permanent representative to the UN, Nebenzia, said at a UN Security Council meeting convened over Russia's use of the Oreshnik missile against the Lviv region. According to him, the conditions for a negotiation process for Ukraine will allegedly worsen with each passing day, and in response to every attack on civilian targets on Russian territory, Moscow promises harsh actions. Thus, it's clear that Russia has no intention of agreeing to a US peace deal at all. The war will continue. Meanwhile, President Zelensky said that while Ukraine is experiencing severe frost, Russia is preparing a new massive strike on the energy sector.
We have information from our intelligence. The Russians are preparing a new large-scale attack of drones to exhaust air defenses and missiles. They want to take advantage of the cold weather. This strike may happen in the coming days. Please take care of yourselves. Protect Ukraine.
Meanwhile, Kuleba said that Russia's plans clearly show that even if Russia were to agree to withdraw its troops from the Donetsk region, it would not comply with the terms of any agreement and would enter any way to take full control of the territory.
If we assume, and you can see that Zelensky is saying this, that the entire agreement would be put to a referendum, not some separate issue. If we assume that society would be ready to accept a painful agreement in which Ukrainian troops would be withdrawn from parts of the Donetsk region while Ukrainian sovereignty is formally preserved, that still would not happen unless there is a clear understanding that the Russians will not enter those areas the very next day after we leave. And that guarantee simply does not exist, and the fact that they would do it is 300% certain. There is no doubt about it at all. So how do you resolve this final dilemma? That is exactly what is holding back the peace process.
And indeed, we can see this entire peace process is practically frozen. All 20 points that were so carefully and painfully developed haven't been confirmed by the Russian side. In fact, what will happen next remains unknown. At the same time, the Russians understand that the war will continue and are preparing new, super advanced technologies for assault operations. This time, they have come up with individual protection for the winter period.
So right now, we're working with the tents how to move through them, put them on, and fold them up. We have 10 tents, and each group has 5 people. Accordingly, I'll send one group with tents tomorrow and another one the next day with tents. I'll also conduct additional training on how to fold it and how to set it up. One person can't manage it yet, but the others are doing fine. Overall, everything is okay. It does take a long time to put on, though, and when you put it on, the wind lifts it up. And when the wind is strong, it's very hard to walk in it. But overall, it's not bad. In principle, it works fine. But if a strong wind starts...
If you understood what the point of all this, write in the comments, because I didn't understand anything. Now, let's move on to the situation along the front line and start with the border area. In the Sumy region, Russian forces are not carrying out any new assaults for now, and the situation there remains stable. In the Kharkiv direction, the Russians are once again shelling Kharkiv. Overnight, there were reports of numerous strikes both in the city itself and in the surrounding areas, but no new offensive actions have been recorded there so far. In the Vovchansk area, fighting continues. The Russians are assaulting the villages of Staritsa and Prolipka, and for the third day in a row, they have been attacking the village of Krovsk. The situation here is very difficult. The gray zone has expanded, but for now, the armed forces of Ukraine are preventing the Russians from gaining a foothold, and the fighting continues. At the same time, the Russians are testing border defenses near the village of Krugle. Attacks were recorded there, but they failed to break through into Ukrainian territory, and the front line remains unchanged. In the area of Velykyi Burluk, the Russians have resumed offensive actions toward Kolodezne and Chugunivka. However, over the past day, they haven't managed to advance further, and the front line remains unchanged. In the Dvorichna direction, the Russians are assaulting Dovhenka and Kutkivka, but there have been no changes over the past day. The armed forces of Ukraine are successfully repelling all attacks. In the Kupiansk direction, the Russians are still trying to regain lost positions. They assaulting Huliaipole and Dnipropetrovsk and attempting to break through toward Peshane and Kurylivka. However, they haven't achieved any success over the past day, and the situation remains unchanged. In the Borova direction, the Russians are assaulting Boguslavka, Novoplatonivka, and Novoyegorivka. The level of activity is relatively low, but assaults and shelling continue on a daily basis. As a result, the situation remains difficult and fighting is ongoing. In the Lyman direction, the Russians are attempting to push toward the outskirts of Lyman. They are assaulting Stavky, Drobysheva, and Novoselivka, and advancing toward Kharkivka. Russian sources are already claiming that they have broken through to Svyatogirsk, but there is currently no confirmation of this. In recent days, sabotage and reconnaissance groups have managed to infiltrate the area. However, despite the fact that these groups haven't been destroyed, it cannot be said that the entire territory is fully under their control. In addition, shelling of Yarova was recorded yesterday, which indicates that Russian forces continue to strike Ukrainian positions. For now, we are waiting to see how the situation develops further. In the Sloviansk direction, the Russians are assaulting Zakitne and breaking through beyond Dronivka. There is also a large number of shelling, but they are unable to advance further here. In the Kostiantynivka direction, activity remains high. The Russians are assaulting Stupochki, Pretechina, the outskirts of Kostiantynivka, Pleshiivka, Bereztok, and breaking through beyond Ivanopillia and Rusin Yar. However, despite all their attacks, they are unable to make further progress. In the Dobropillia direction, the Russians have already fully captured Pankivka and Volodymyrivka and partially Shakhove, so the situation here has worsened. The Russians conducted prolonged, bloody assaults to fully take control of this territory. They are now continuing to assault Sofiivka from two directions. In addition, they are attempting to storm Torske and Nikanorivka. Fighting is still ongoing here. The Russians have also partially captured Nove Shakhove and are gradually trying to expand territory toward Dobropillia. In the Pokrovsk direction, this situation has also deteriorated. The Russians have fully entrenched themselves and cleared most of the city of Mirnograd. The Ukrainian forces remain only on the outskirts at some positions, but in practice, the Russians control the area. Fighting is still ongoing. How long the defense can be maintained, there is a big question. But logistics are completely under the Russian control. So every day the situation worsens as the Russians are gradually bringing in more manpower and equipment into both Mirnograd and Pokrovsk, increasing pressure accordingly. In the Novopavlivka direction, the Russians are breaking through in the city and are also assaulting Filia and Ivanivka, but they are unable to advance further, and the Ukrainian forces are repelling all attacks. In the direction of Pokrovske in Dnipropetrovsk region, the Russians are breaking through beyond Oleksiivka, Verbove, and Vishneve. But here the Ukrainian forces continue to defeat them and the front line remains stable. In the Huliaipole direction, activity is extremely high with around 40 assaults per day. So the Russians have brought in a large number of reserves and are attempting to break through near the villages of Solodke, Dobropillia, Praluke, Varvarivka, and Zelene. Fighting continues for the outskirts of Huliaipole. There is also still a very large number of shelling, although there have been no changes to the front line over the past day. In the Zaporizhzhia direction, activity has also increased. The Russians are assaulting Lukyanivsk, claiming to have captured the village of Novoboykivsk, and are also assaulting Stepnohirsk and Primorsk. We are still waiting for information from the Ukrainian side, but it appears that the Russians are gradually managing to push through the defenses here. On the geolocation map, both the gray and red zones have expanded significantly, so the situation seems to be worsening. In the Kherson direction, the Russians are not conducting any new assaults and the front line remains unchanged. Meanwhile, Trump has started taking actions with Iran and initially imposed new tariffs. And now, any country doing business with Iran will have to pay a 25% duty on all transactions conducted with the US. It's important not to forget that this is a major blow to Russia. Despite the attempts to act as if everything is fine, Iran has been supplying a significant amount of weapons to Russia. Iran armed Russia with $2.7 billion worth of military equipment. Tehran became a key weapons supplier and significantly strengthened Russia's military capabilities in the war. Purchases included hundreds of short-range Fath 360 ballistic missiles, nearly 500 other ballistic missiles, around 200 anti-aircraft missiles for air defense systems, as well as millions of ammunition rounds and artillery shells. Bloomberg notes that this is not the full list of purchases, and Moscow expects additional deliveries of military equipment from Iran. Tehran supplied Russia with Shahed 136 kamikaze drones and transferred the technology that allowed them to begin domestic production in Russia under the name Herань 2. The drone and technology transfer contract was signed at the beginning of 2023, valued at $1.75 billion. According to Bloomberg, since the end of 2021, Russia has spent over $4 billion on Iranian military equipment. This involves not just supplying ready-made weapons, but also systematic military technical cooperation, including the transfer of engineering solutions and production capabilities. The supply of ballistic missiles represents a new level of escalation, as these are strike weapons capable of overloading and penetrating air defense systems. Local production of Gerains in Russia reduces drone costs, minimizes logistical risks, and enables massive waves of attacks. Financial transactions between Russia and Iran often occur outside the dollar system through barter, intermediaries, and third countries, making sanctions control more difficult. Iran is using the war in Ukraine as a testing ground for its weapons, a source of revenue, and a way to strengthen its negotiation position with the West. The $4 billion figure is not final. New contracts, expanded weapon types, and deeper military integration between Moscow and Tehran are expected. A US military operation in Iran is anticipated. So, all of this shows that without Iran, it will be even harder for Russia to conduct the war. Previously, no one could imagine Russia losing its strategic partners so easily, and now this situation is worsening for them, which could seriously affect the course of the war in Ukraine. Today, reports indicate that Trump is leaning towards strikes on Iran. Trump is considering the possibility of striking Iran to punish the Ayatollah regime for killing protesters, according to Axios. Sources in the White House told Axios that Trump will discuss strike options at a meeting with his national security team on Tuesday, which is today. However, Axios sources note that while the US president has threatened the Iranian regime with strikes, it's not clear whether American bombs could change the situation in Tehran. Separately, yesterday evening, the US Embassy in Iran urged citizens to leave Iran immediately or find a safe location if departure is not possible. As a result, the Iranian government has urgently requested negotiations with the US, likely seeking to reach an agreement. Overall, we're still waiting to see how events will unfold, but it's clear that actions are likely in the near future. And that's all from me. So please don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on all the latest news. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.